Yo, Cathie Wood is famous for her $1.48 million Bitcoin prediction for 2030. But it looks like she's made a tweak to that prediction, according to the latest interview of her on Bloomberg. But before we break down all the maths and check out all the receipts, let's check out the clip and then we shall talk about it.
Do you still sort of see Bitcoin really hitting some of those lofty milestones that you've talked about before? 100,000 is still a long way from a million. I do kind of wonder how much further you think this could actually go.
Well, what's interesting about Bitcoin today, now that we're going to get more regulatory green lights, we're seeing institutional investors focus on this new asset class. And as they're learning about it, they're saying, wait a minute, this new asset class, or this component of a new asset class, Bitcoin, is going to reach 21 million units out there, 21 million Bitcoin out there at its peak, and no more from there on. Where are we now? We're already above 19.5 million units. And so if institutional investors are looking at this new asset class more seriously, and Bitcoin is really the first of its kind in a new asset class and will be, we believe, the biggest opportunity of them all, they must consider an allocation. And so supply demand, they're doing the arithmetic, and we see 1 million to 1.5 million by 2030. That the probability of that has increased because of institutional.
Okay, so that's 6 years from now. And I understand the supply-demand dynamics. But Cathie, I'm sure you're also very aware of some of the main criticisms that there really is no, fundamentals, if you will, at least in the traditional sense of how we try to value stocks or hard assets here. So beyond the speculative nature of I buy this and someone will buy it for more than me down the road, is there anything else there that gooses this beyond just that supply-demand equation?
Well, I think it's a very big idea, and it's not just speculative. It's a global monetary system that is rules-based, it is private, it is digital, it is decentralized, and it is backed by the largest computer in the world, or the largest computing system. It's the most secure network in the world. So that's very important. Gold would be in the same category. Gold is a store of value. And it is fairly scarce. What's interesting, in the last year, with the last halving this April, the increase in Bitcoin, the number of Bitcoin per year, the percentage increase, dropped to roughly 0.9% per year. That is below the 1% long-term growth in the supply of gold. So it is becoming even more scarce than gold. And the difference between gold and Bitcoin is when the gold price goes up, as it has, production goes up, the rate of increase in the supply goes up. That cannot happen with Bitcoin. It is mathematically metered to go up now 0.9% per year for the next 4 years, and then the supply growth will be cut in half again. So we think you can use gold as a guide in terms of what this asset class is right now, at least. It's very definitely a store of value, a digital store of value. And it's
So I know what you guys are thinking, like, Nico, another Bitcoin price prediction, what has changed? But we all have to remember, Cathie Wood has an excellent track record of calling stocks like Tesla, of course, calling Bitcoin way early. I think it was in like 2013, 2014, where she originally talked about Bitcoin or invested in Bitcoin. And what was really interesting to me is the fact that she's changing her base case. And that's what I want to talk about today. That's what I want to focus on. And that's the thing that I found interesting about that interview, right? So when the reporter asked her, by the way, like, what did that reporter not get the memo? Like, this is in 2017. Like, are we still in the era of trying to establish why Bitcoin is valuable? I don't know. I find that funny. But anyhow, we'll get to that in a second. She moved her base case. She moved it from, she dropped this, I think, earlier on in the year or 2023. And she said her base case for 2030 was $682,000 per coin. In that interview, she's saying her base case is between 1 million to 1.5, which is 1.5 is actually about $200 or $20,000 or whatever more than her bull case that she made back in 2023. Now, she glanced as to what her reasoning was behind that. Well, it's pretty obvious. I mean, we have been covering it for the last couple of weeks on Simply Bitcoin, and I'll just go through some of that, right? You have states like Ohio, Pennsylvania, Texas. You have countries like Brazil, Russia. You have on the federal level, you have, a pro-Bitcoin administration going into the White House. The president of the United States, or the ex-president and future president of the United States, he gets inaugurated January 20th, promised Bitcoiners that he was going to make a strategic Bitcoin reserve, or basically not sell Bitcoin. And then, of course, you had Senator Cynthia Lummis, the Bitcoin senator, take out a bill, right? There's a poly market odds on it right now. Like, a lot of things have changed in the last 2 years or so. So, yeah, it would make perfect sense why Cathie Wood would raise her base case. None of these things were true when she laid out these arguments many years ago. So that's just the nation state adoption. But on the institutional adoption, you have MicroStrategy being the best performing stock in 2024 by a large margin. He's outperforming companies like NVIDIA, like Microsoft, like Google, like Yahoo. Their shareholders are asking, why is MicroStrategy outperforming us, right? Amazon shareholders are like, hey, what's going on? Microsoft had to hold a vote. So like clearly a lot of things have changed since she made this prediction, this report a couple of years ago. So yes, I agree with her. I mean, like, guys, it's not unreasonable. We were at 108,000 not too long ago, a couple days ago. And that's less than a 10x to 1 million. So are you trying to look at me dead in the eye and say, Nico, Bitcoin's not going to less than 10x in 6 years or in 5 years? I think that's a pretty conservative case. And honestly, and I've been saying this for the last week or so, I think a lot of us are going to be surprised by Bitcoin's performance in 2025. I think a lot of people are going to be surprised because I think a lot of people still have PTSD from the 2021 bull market. Bitcoin really hasn't had a true bull market since 2017. And I think the 2021 bull market was cut short because of the China mining ban and the FTX rehypothecation. And Bitcoin tends to do the exact opposite, or markets, better said, tend to do the exact opposite of what the masses think they're going to do. So when I'm hearing 150K or 200K on Twitter, and that's what everyone is saying, people forget, they have short memories, but people were saying 100 or 200K Bitcoin last cycle, right? So just for the numbers to kind of stay roughly the same, it would be a little bit of a letdown, Bitcoin tends to have its parabola year the year after the halving. So far this year, we're up a roughly, give or take, around 145%. Are you telling me that, if Bitcoin if it's just a 2x, so 100% gain from here, it's 200K. Are you telling me it's not going to do more than that? A 3x is 300K. That wouldn't surprise me. I'm not saying it's going to hold those levels, but at least, peak at those levels, like kind of like a blow off top. So, and again, the reason I feel so confident about this is that's not the general consensus. The general consensus is more on the bearish side, right? So anyways, just bullish news, bullish Friday. And I just want to give it to you guys. I want to talk about this because I just feel everyone is losing their minds. Bitcoin is over. Bitcoin is dead. We went from 108K to 92,000. Pack it up. It's going to zero. We've been here so many times before. This is like standard operating procedure during bull markets, and it's a great opportunity to join the dip. Anyways, today I'm joined joined by Mick from Geyser, and of course our homie Chris Alamo. Mick, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. How you doing? What did you think about Cathie Wood increasing her price prediction for 2030?
Hey guys, always a pleasure for being here. Thank you so much for the invite. I mean, look, Cathie has been bullish and had some, also that upping that bear case is really quite interesting to me. What I find it particularly interesting at this point, the institutional and the state level adoption is happening undeniably. That means good for Bitcoin. That means number go up. All of that is great news. And hopefully we continue seeing that and it starts becoming adopted more and more at those levels. What I think is also really important to keep an eye on, though, is not as much as state level or institutional level adoption, but community level adoption, grassroots level adoption. And that's really what Geyser is all about. And remembering that for Bitcoin to succeed as a long-term phenomenon, for it to be resilient, it needs to be adopted widely, and it needs to also be understood widely. If the states are the one that are telling us what Bitcoin is, what prevents them from changing the code? What prevents them from saying, oh, well, Bitcoin doesn't need to be capped to 21 million. So we need to have a very, very firm grassroots movement in Bitcoin. And we do that by spreading Bitcoin, by educating people about Bitcoin, by making Bitcoin culture, what you guys are doing, by making films, by making games, and so on and so forth. So I love Cathie. I love, what's going on right now in terms of adoption. That's super bullish. But also let's keep in mind the grassroots level adoption that needs to happen for Bitcoin to remain and to become a truly successful in the long-term phenomenon.
Amen. I think that's an excellent point. And of course, joining us today, filling in for Opti, we got Chris Alamo in the house. Chris, what's your take on Cathie Wood?
Yeah, no, what's up, guys? Happy to be here. Opti, feel better. And I know there's a bunch of other people in the chat saying they're not feeling well. Merry Christmas to everyone. But no, I think Cathie Wood, she's a smart investor. Obviously, when the facts change, she updates her models. I think that she kind of thought into 2030, her models were predicting that like a lot of corporations such as Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, those of the ilks, the Magnificent Seven, would be adopting Bitcoin as a treasury reserve asset, similar to what MicroStrategy was doing. I know it's kind of us as Bitcoiners have been really bullish on more companies doing it. Obviously, we saw the vote of Microsoft, and like they basically voted 99.5% against adopting or putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet. I think that's just because they're really bullish on their operating business, where MicroStrategy or Rumble or another, even some of the miners are kind of raising funds that they're more bullish on buying Bitcoin versus their operations. That's just kind of what I'm seeing in the market. But she sees her thesis was that Bitcoin's price was going to go to, her base case was $600,000. But I think now she's seeing what Max Kaiser and Trace Mayer and a lot of other Bitcoiners have been saying for at least a decade. Like nation states are going to compete. I think Russia's here. Obviously, the Bitcoin Abu Dhabi conference or Bitcoin MENA conference. There's a lot of talk about the Saudi sovereign wealth funds or different nation states in the Middle East kind of adopting Bitcoin, taking their oil reserves and converting it to Bitcoin. I think, the U.S. with the strategic reserve, Russia, I think, Putin's basically all but said that they're adopting Bitcoin or, stacking Bitcoin. Obviously, a lot of these nations, it's in their own best interest to keep it quiet. But I think she's updating her case to be like, oh, crap, like we might be skipping a lot of the corporations and we're front running with nation states. So that's probably why she updated her bull case and even her base case and her bear case for what Bitcoin's going to do. When these nation states have the ability to print money to buy Bitcoin or basically to put Bitcoin on their balance sheets as a nation, I definitely think that's why we're leapfrogging to much higher prices, much higher highs.
100%. I agree with that because that was really the game changer, right? Where this came out of nowhere. It came so quickly, right? We went from being attacked by the previous administration to, just 0 to 100 like this, basically talking about a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And I remember seeing the evolution, right? Like first it was like talking about banning central bank digital currencies. Then that led to Bitcoin. Then that somehow led to a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and then you're hearing it being talked about internationally. And it's great. Like, for example, today, something we're going to talk about during the news, we have a Tornado Cash update, Tornado Cash case update for you guys. It's a very, very important case for us because after all, Bitcoin is open source software. But we went from being attacked as an industry to, the incoming administration of the most powerful country on the face of the planet being pro Bitcoin. Like, that happened very, very quickly. And of course, that forces every other country around the world that potentially is competing against the United States to take a different look on Bitcoin for the fear of getting left behind, right? So, this is the game theory playing out. This is when Max Kaiser coined the global hash war, and we're seeing it play out. And of course, when countries compete for your Bitcoin, you win, right? It's as simple as that. All right, everybody, before we start the show, I do want to give a very special shout out to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor. Guys, I get this message all the time from you guys. You want to support, you want to send us money, you want to send us Bitcoin, you want to send us sats. We are supported by our partners. So if you guys want to help support the show, check out our partners. We're very, very picky on who we choose to partner with. It's going to help you become a sovereign individual using Bitcoin. So I want to give a shout out to our lead sponsor, Bitcoin Well. Bitcoin Well is the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. Enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin on-chain or via the Lightning Network in Canada or the USA. To get started, you put in your email address here. It takes 2 to 5 minutes to get signed up, and bada bing, bada boom, you're ready to buy Bitcoin. Now, what makes Bitcoin Well different than all the other on-ramps and why we're such a big fan of it here at Simply Bitcoin, it is a completely non-custodial platform. So what does that mean? That means that when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, and then the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address. For higher net worth individuals that are looking to buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more, if you're looking for a white glove, tailored experience, you're tired of dealing with that finicky Coinbase UI, and you want to deal with a human being every time you buy or sell, or you have questions about Bitcoin, you have to check out Bitcoin Well Infinite. To get started, go to bitcoinwell.com/OTC, or you can send me an email, nico@bitcoinwell.com. Also, every time you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn Bitcoin Well points. And you could redeem those points towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest, which we're doing live for you guys right now. Get your Lightning wallets ready. First person to scan the QR code has won 500 sats. You win every time you toss a coin into the Wishing Well. And by the way, you have an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis. If you use promo code SimplyBTC, again, SimplyBTC, to sign up to bitcoinwell.com today, you get 3 tosses into the Bitcoin Wishing Well. All right, everybody, let's get to numbers. We have tons to talk about. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stampseed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stampseed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. All right, everybody. Before we jump into the numbers, scan the QR code on your screen. Head over to stampseed.com today. Stamp your seed into titanium. Don't write down your seed phrase. Don't write down your generational wealth on paper. Paper is fickle. You want to stamp that seed into titanium. Scan the QR code. Go to stampseed.com today. Use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $97,120. Block height 875,618. Sats per dollar 1,029. Market cap 1.92 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap 10.53%. Percentage issued 94.28%. Decline from all-time high negative 10.3%. Realized monetary inflation 1.13%. The grand scheme of things, we are just getting the party started. Anyways, before I kind of get into the bulk of the numbers news, I do want to cover this because it's important to zoom out when in doubt. So here's Vijay Poyapati. He's contributed a tremendous amount towards the community and just Bitcoin in general. Great book. I think he wrote the book, The Bullish Case for Bitcoin. I believe that was the author. Chris, is that right?
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah. Great author. Big fan of his work. Highly recommend it. So that article was so famous. It was originally written on Medium, but it got so much traction that it originally became a book. And Saylor actually wrote the foreword for that book. So anyways, this is the author of that book. Great guy, very, very intelligent. And he says, a reminder from prior bull markets. Corrections are normal and we'll see several more before the end of 2025. And this is actually a tweet from 2021, right? And I'll pull it up. In the 2017 Bitcoin bull market, corrections found demand after drops from 30 to 40%. In the current bull market, demand seems to appear after corrections between 15 to 20%. This is probably indicative of a difference in buyers, retail 2017 versus institutional today, right? So yeah, I mean, this is quite interesting, and it seems like history is once again repeating itself. So take advantage and stack the dip. Anyways, so quick update on this. We covered this on yesterday's show. If you guys didn't watch it, essentially El Salvador to scale back Bitcoin policies for $1.4 billion IMF loan deal. But the most important point, and you know, the IMF takes this victory statement, basically saying it's going to be confined and all that stuff. But it seems like the IMF had to make some concessions because Bitcoin will remain legal tender, number one. And number two, El Salvador will continue its Bitcoin acquisition strategy. And what's quite interesting, and I think, you know, I noticed this last night, I actually tweeted about it, and the tweet did quite well. So I'm assuming a lot of people resonated with it. And I said, in case anyone can't read between the lines, this is a message to the IMF. As soon as, you know, that IMF deal was being talked about and it started making the rounds, El Salvador changed their daily 1 Bitcoin purchase, and they purchased 11 Bitcoin in one day. And I saw that as a clear message. That it was clear. Like I saw that, I was like, that's a message being sent to the IMF in an indirect way, basically saying, you know what, nothing's changed here. Bitcoin's still legal tender, and we're going to continue to keep our strategy of acquiring 1 Bitcoin a day. And here's the official press release by the Bitcoin office. I believe Max and Stacy run it. It says, we just transferred over $1 million worth of Bitcoin to our strategic Bitcoin reserve. So yeah, I mean, like taking that IMF money and buying Bitcoin with it. That's a joke, but you know, I do find it. It's symbols are important, guys. Symbols are important. That was very symbolic. The timing of it was not a coincidence. It was on purpose, and that purpose was to send a message. Anyways, I'm going to start with Chris. Chris, what are your thoughts on this? You know, this IMF news.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in the IMF, or even just like normal economists, were saying the IMF won, El Salvador is a failed experiment. But Nico, I know you've been talking about this for years. The project of El Salvador, I mean, their crime rate's #1 in the West, meaning that it's the lowest crime rate of anywhere in the Western Hemisphere, probably better than most U.S. cities, I would say. Obviously, a lot of Bitcoiners were hoping this would be more grassroots, the adoption of Bitcoin. So them saying it's not requiring businesses to take it, but voluntarily, there's the old saying in Bitcoin that you get price at you get Bitcoin at the price that you deserve. So a lot of the businesses that opt to not accept it or decline to accept it or don't want to accept in the future, they will come around to Bitcoin through one way or another. So I think it was a great experiment for showing it. I know that they were also, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, Nico, but I think they were shutting down the Chivo wallet, which I think is a good thing. I mean, even though Bukele and El Salvador is very tech forward and future focused, they could not build a better wallet, in my opinion, than a lot of the wallets that are today, such as Phoenix Wallet, such as Wallet of Satoshi, such as, even Nostr clients like Primal. A lot of the free market or the private sector does better than the public market, such as government entities and stuff. So I just think that this is just another case of that Chivo was a government-run wallet or a wallet that was trying to be spun up by El Salvador. I give them props for trying it, but I definitely think the private sector will generate better products and services for people that are looking for them. So like you said, and I think it is symbolic that they didn't sell their Bitcoin. They bought 11 more, and it looks like they're going to keep going with their forward. So it's basically the IMF gave them the loan to buy more Bitcoin, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Very symbolic, definitely sending a message. Before I pass it on to Mick to get his thoughts, I do want to give a shout out to the 2,500 of you guys watching live between YouTube, Rumble, and X. I appreciate you guys. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. And of course, share the content. It helps push the message forward. Also, we are streaming to Nostr via zap.stream, and we made an announcement yesterday that we will be uploading all our content to Nostr via the Primal app. Starting yesterday, essentially, we uploaded Simply Bitcoin Originals by Rustin, and we're going to continue to do so moving forward to support, as content creators, it's really important for us to support protocols that I'll leave it at that. Anyways, Mick, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this, man? What are your thoughts on the message from El Salvador, stacking the dip, stacking that Bitcoin, buying that cheap corn?
I think you nailed it. El Salvador is saying, you're going to give us some money? You really want to give us some money? What are we going to do with the money? We're going to stack Bitcoin. I mean, a total based move, beautiful strategic approach. And like you said, don't listen to what they say, right? Look at what they do. And Nayib Bukele, with that symbol of buying 11 Bitcoin in one day, made a very, very strong statement. But the question I have is this: why did the IMF do it, right? If they weren't able to curtail El Salvador's strategic Bitcoin strategy, why did they give them all the money and not push harder? Well, I'll give you my interpretation, my thought around that. I think they are seeing this as a win, right? If their strategy is to get people outside of the Bitcoin standard, then with this move, they're like, oh, look, see, Bitcoin is not technically legal tender. So now they can go to other countries and say, no, well, El Salvador is not technically legal tender because countries are, and the merchants and so forth are not mandated to accept Bitcoin. And so with this sleight of hand, the IMF think that they're winning because they can say that it's not really legal tender. But the reality is they're still stacking sats and they still have a Bitcoin mentality. So I think Bukele is absolutely owning them, absolutely winning them in this case from a storytelling perspective.
100%. They're definitely winning the narrative. I completely agree with you, and that I think that's what's important, right? Because the IMF, their statement was quite strong. I'll read it. I'll reread it for you guys. They said, "quote: the potential risks of the Bitcoin project will be diminished significantly in line with fund policies. Legal reforms will make acceptance of Bitcoin by the private sector voluntary. For the public sector, engagement in Bitcoin-related economic activities and transactions in Bitcoin and purchases of Bitcoin will be confined," it was stated in the press release. And another observation, and then I'll pass it on to Chris to get his thoughts. You guys have to put this into perspective, right? The IMF is a very powerful institution. Its headquarters is in Washington, D.C., if you could read in between the lines. And what's interesting to me is how much attention they're putting into El Salvador. El Salvador has a total GDP of 32 billion. Just to kind of give you guys perspective, Elon Musk's individual net worth is 250 billion, right? Why does the IMF care so much what this tiny country is doing in regards to making Bitcoin legal tender? Why do they care so much about El Salvador's Bitcoin policy? I have my own theories on that, but before I want to get Chris's thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're singling out, to your point, Nico, they're singling out El Salvador, which has a population of 6 million. It's smaller than, the city of, or the burbs of New York. So like 8 million people live in New York City proper area. So yeah, I think they're singling them out because they don't want to lose control. I think at the end of the day, it's, people strive for money and power. And once you can print money, all you want is power. So they're trying to control or to prevent an escape hatch. As like our friend Christine Lagarde, or Opti's ex-girlfriend, always says, we want to lock down the escape hatches because we don't want them to use a way to get out of our system. Obviously, and tying this back to France and Africa and stuff like that, France controls many parts of Africa through colonization of weaponizing the money, not so much with foot soldiers and colonization of force. They have used that in the past, but basically what they do is they control their bank reserves, the gold that Africa mines, and a lot of their monetary and banking system have to go through France. So basically France has them, exactly what the US did to Russia by taking them off the SWIFT system. Russia basically does the large continent of Africa. So, a lot of the traditional monetary system, you're under the thumb or the guise of corporations, which are under the thumb of governments abroad. And, then there's a lot of these NGOs or non-government organizations such as the IMF that are kind of even in lockstep or even above governments, you can see, as pressuring, left or right, it doesn't matter. They put their thumb and try and unelected bureaucrats kind of push their policies of power and control. So that's just kind of the way that I see it. They're worried that this El Salvador experiment will be seen. People will be like, oh, crap, we should do what they're doing. And then they lose control. So that's why they have to try and quash or squash basically this peaceful movement of monetary revolution.
Absolutely. I think that's an excellent point. Mick, what's your take on all this, brother?
Yeah, I mean, Chris just nailed it there. I mean, the example of France is a microcosm of what's happening globally with the dollar, right? The dollar is the global hegemon, and the IMF, as you said, it's based in Washington, and it obviously does the interests of the United States dollar. Now, El Salvador is still a dollar-backed economy, but is experimenting with Bitcoin, buying Bitcoin, and so forth. So this represents the cutting edge of a competition, of Bitcoin representing competition for the dollar, which, I mean, it's still far away, but it still represents a potential threat that they have to start to manage. So we'll see. It'll take time, right? It's going to take a long time, but it will. It's going to be a gradual and then gradually kind of thing, because it will take time, guys. But it is still a situation they have to be able to manage. So during the Cold War, they talked about the domino effects of communism. Well, here there's a threat of the domino effect of Bitcoin becoming legal tender in many different countries. So, but yeah, we just have to keep on just infiltrating Bitcoin into every single place we can. At the grassroots level, at the nation state level, and hopefully this becomes a new paradigm for wealth and abundance for a lot of the world, and not this sort of monetary type hegemony domination that impacts a lot of nations.
Absolutely. I think that's an excellent point. I think you're making excellent points, Mick. And it's, and the Bitcoin mind virus is spreading. It's spreading on a nation state level, on an institutional level, and on an individual level as well. And it's extremely exciting. And again, I'll repeat what I said in the beginning of the show. When people are competing for your Bitcoin, you win because numbers go up, right? Anyways, guys, let's get to the news. We have tons to talk about. We'll be right back.
I want to give a very special shout out to our sponsor, Compass Mining. They make Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone, from beginners to experienced investors. Their turnkey miners gets you online and hashing within 48 hours, making it easier than ever to start your mining journey. Plus, with their active marketplace, you can resell your miner at any time. adding flexibility and value to your investment. Visit their website to access a wealth of resources, learning everything you need to know about Bitcoin mining. Take your first step into the world of Bitcoin mining with confidence. Discover more at compassmining.io. Again, compassmining.io, and see how Compass Mining can power your success. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US, and it integrates seamlessly with their free app called Envoy. Passport is fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet design with a UX reminiscent of a classic feature phone, so you'll know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. It's also air-gapped, meaning Bitcoin stays offline, never touching an internet connection. It's Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, air-gap security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes with Passport at foundation.xyz/simply. Get peace of mind.
All right, everybody, scan the QR code on your screen right now. It'll take you directly to the Foundation Devices website where you can get yourself a passport. Remember, guys, not your keys, not your cheese. All right, everybody, let's get to today's news. Where is it? Here it is. Okay, so quick refresher. This Tornado Cash case, we've been talking about it for quite a long time. And I'll go through the series of events so that you guys can understand why you should care about this, what's the significance of it, et cetera, et cetera. So this was part of Operation Choke Point 2.0 that was happening during the Biden administration. And essentially what happened was they went after Tornado Cash. And the argument that they made was that Tornado Cash was being used by the North Koreans and by criminals to launder money. And, this is very similar to the TD Bank case and all that stuff, except when, our industry does it, we go to jail. When their industry does it, they get fines, right? Kind of a double standard. And, they arrested these guys and they said, you guys are essentially, we're convicting you guys for money laundering and et cetera, et cetera. But what's really scary is, these guys didn't facilitate anything. They built software and people used that software to commit crime. So what the Treasury tried to do is that they tried to set a precedent, basically making it so that the Treasury can sanction open source software. You understand where this is going? You know what else is open source? Bitcoin is open source. So they were essentially setting precedents. And the reason that I believe they started with Tornado Cash is because no one really knows what Tornado Cash is. It's not really very popular. As soon as the Tornado Cash case happened, and shout out to Coin Center because they tried to appeal, the appeal got shot down. As soon as the appeal got shot down, within a month or two, you know what they did? They went after Samurai, and they arrested the Samurai wallet guys. So it was like a slow crawl, it was like a chess game of, let's go after the little fish, let's set the legal precedent, and then let's use that as a platform to go after the bigger fish. And where I believe this was heading eventually was going to be the case as, look, we have to sanction Bitcoin, and you can only use approved wallets, because if you don't use the approved wallets, countries that the United States has sanction policies against are going to use Bitcoin to circumvent U.S. sanction policy. So they were doing it very slowly but surely. They were setting these legal precedents, and it was like there's this slow crawl. But we were on top of it the entire time. So for us, it was like very methodical, and it was very obvious where this was going, right? So this is why, elections have consequences. We got so much heat for picking a side, but we weren't picking a side because of the non-Bitcoin related policies. We're very neutral when it comes to that stuff. We picked a side because we felt like our industry was under attack. And another thing that I'll say is, the Republicans and Trump wouldn't have just started talking about Bitcoin because they liked Bitcoin. They saw it as an opportunity to get votes. It was as simple as that. And then by attacking our industry, they also, and this was an unintended consequence, they created a donor class out of our industry. And in case anyone doesn't understand how Washington, D.C. works, it's essentially like run by the donors. And now our industry is part of that donor class. So we are going to have influence in Washington, D.C. politics. And this all started because they decided to attack our industry. Like, I don't think Bitcoiners would have gotten political, and I don't think the Republicans would have even looked at Bitcoin. It was like they attacked us, and that created an opportunity for their leading political opponents to capitalize on it. Simple as that. So the reason I'm giving you all this preface is so that you guys understand this upcoming article, and it's a big win. And by the way, this is not a coincidence that this is happening after the Republican Party and Trump won the election, right? All these cases that are being dismissed, Gary Gensler saying that he's resigning, all these people that they're announcing that they're resigning right before Trump is inaugurated. Like, do you think all these cases it's not a coincidence? This is why we keep saying, listen, we all want the world from the sovereign individual as Bitcoiners, right? This world where politics is irrelevant because the state has lost the ability to create money for free that everyone else has to work for. But we are not in that world yet. We're in the transition phase. And during the transition phase, unfortunately, fiat politics are still very important. So anyways, big preface and lots of context provided. So here's Lola, and she says, this is a tweet, by the way. She says, quote, "Wake up, babe. There's a new filing in Tornado Cash. Roman Storm's defense has filed to drop all criminal charges as last month's sanctions reversal show all counts of the indictment are fatally and legally flawed. In the sanctions reversal, the Fifth Circuit found that the software does not constitute property and cannot be owned or controlled, leaving the government's case against Storm hardly a leg to stand on. This is why, guys, this is what I was trying to tell you. When they did this, it was pretty scary because basically the Treasury was trying to make the case that the way that sanctions work is that you're supposed to be able to sanction an individual or sanction a country. Let me try to give you guys an analogy. It's like basically saying the gun manufacturers are liable for violence that is committed with guns. It's not the guns that are committing the violence. It's the people. So it's the same with this, right? How could you be held liable if someone uses software that you made and they themselves decided to use that in an illegal form? Why should you be held liable for that? And of course, they're doing this because I don't think it has anything to do with what they claim it has to do with. I think it has to do with the fact that they're losing their monopoly on the control of money. I think that's what it fundamentally boils down to. And I think they're using lawfare to try to retain that control over money. So it goes on to say, much of Storm's prosecution relies on the government's ability to prove that Storm operated a service over which he held sufficient control. According to the defense, if Tornado Cash is not property and cannot be owned, then it cannot be a business at all, let alone a money transmitting business. As argued in the newly filed motion, the Fifth Circuit, quote, confirms that the government will never be able to prove that Mr. Storm had control over the proceeds of the specified unlawful activity. In the legal system, circuit appellate courts exist to review whether district courts have applied the law correctly, holding the ability to set binding precedent. While Storm's criminal prosecution lies outside of the Fifth Circuit jurisdiction, the ruling may be sufficiently persuasive to end the U.S. government's witch hunt and incredible misinterpretation of the law. Shout out to everyone who backed the suit against the Treasury. You may have saved a person's life and the future of financial privacy for all of us. Yes, I cannot emphasize. And by the way, this will have implications for the Tornado Cash case. This is all connected. You just have to connect the dots. So, I think that's a huge win for the Bitcoin movement. And it's definitely a step in the right direction. And I'm going to repeat myself like a parrot. Elections have consequences. I don't think that all of a sudden, this court found Satoshi and was like, you know what? Actually, we can't sanction open source software. No, I think they see the writing on the wall of the incoming administration, the fact that the incoming administration has a Bitcoin donor base, the fact that the incoming administration is very positive and friendly towards the industry, and I think that they can't get away with the lawfare that they were getting away with during the current administration. And I think it's as simple as that. Anyways, Chris, what are your thoughts on this? There's a lot of pieces to put together, but I hope I did a good job.
No, you did a really good job. And Nico, it's all in framing too. So they're kind of always trying to build the narrative and the case to look like it's best in their own interest. So tying back to Tornado Cash, back in 2023, they said over $1 billion was laundered through this. And listen to the words. They say that from their own article, as alleged, Tornado Cash has an infamous cryptocurrency mixer that laundered more than $1 billion in criminal proceeds and violated the U.S. sanctions. But when you dig into the article, it's $1 billion had gone through the crypto mixer, but a lot of people that were using it are using it for privacy preserving reasons. But of course, DC, the Elizabeth Warrens of the world love to lump that all in together and say that they were using it for nefarious reasons. But then another article came out just this year that was saying, including more than $450 million that were stolen by the Lazarus Group, which is a North Korean-backed hacking group. But then when you dig into it further, there was, asterisks on that $450 million. So $450 million was stolen from bank accounts and other things. And yes, cryptocurrencies are using. But then their own reports, Elizabeth Warren brought up this $455 million to Congress. But then cryptographers or people in the crypto space said less than $250,000 US dollars were used in terms of cryptocurrencies. So they would go from $1 billion to $450 million to $250,000. So notice that they're always trying to build that it's the worst case scenario. The chicken's falling, think Chicken Little, where, the sky is falling and all that. And they're trying to frame it for their own benefit that we need to go after it. Look, they're laundering over $1 billion through this mixer when a lot of people that are using it legally, to try and preserve their own privacy. Tying that into the cryptographers from the 90s, there was a famous battle between the US and cryptographers globally, but they were saying that code in the 90s was munitions. They were trying to charge them as using encryption as a way that they are aiding and abetting Russia, Iran, any adversaries to the United States, saying that they were aiding them with encryption protocols that allowing that the government can't backdoor and see what the communications are going for back and forth. Adam Back, Tim May, Eric Hughes, a lot of famous cryptographers from back in the 90s were fighting this against the US government. So what they ultimately ended up doing was, if you say that code is speech or code is illegal and that's a munition, they printed those things on shirts and they walk through airports like TSA. It's like, oh, am I aiding and abetting criminals by, having the code, the free and open source code on a t-shirt? And ultimately they lost. I don't know. I think it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, or at least the Fifth Circuit of Appeals, and basically said that no, that code is speech and speech is protected under the First Amendment. So the government was not allowed to go against them. And there's been many cases along them, but this is the newest iteration, Choke Point 2.0, of trying to go after Tornado Cash, Bitcoin Fog, and the Samurai developers. Unfortunately, Bitcoin Fog went against Roman Sterlingoff, not to be confused with Roman Storm of the Tornado Cash case. But as of right now, he's facing 12 and a half years. He will be in prison unless he's pardoned by someone like Trump or, a future U.S. president. But the thing that's crazy of it all is they claim that Bitcoin Fog was another mixer, just like Tornado Cash, but specifically for Bitcoin. They were claiming that, he was running it solely alone, but yet to this day, Bitcoin Fog is still operating and running today. So how can the guy that's a sole operator of the thing that they said, harmed people and criminals are using to launder money is still up and operational today, even though he sits in jail and has been fighting his case for the last 3 years and fighting it from a jail cell? So it's just really, the narrative doesn't match what actually happens in reality. And one last point for Roman Sterlingoff, that he was he never denied using it. He said that he used it, but they claim that he was the sole founder and creator and user of this. And they basically have this black box software with a Chainalysis. And basically his defense wasn't allowed to get access to it. They said you have to buy it for a ridiculous sum of like $25,000, which his lawyers were running on a much smaller budget. So my last thing will be like, if you want to help on this fight, and I think we are winning, the tides are changing, us as a voting block, crypto and Bitcoin in general as a voting block have won, and elections have consequences. But if you want to help out in this fight, p2prights.org or Zach Shapiro, which I know he's been on the show a few times, is a great advocate in fighting the fight for the Tornado Cash guys, or the Samurai guys, my apologies. But yeah.
Absolutely, and I think you made great points, and I'm really glad that you brought up the so-called crypto wars. And I'm not talking about cryptos and cryptocurrency, but the cryptography wars. That you're right, Chris. That did start in the '90s, and I do believe that this is a continuation of that. Right? It's essentially the U.S. government's attempt to stop their citizens from achieving sovereignty through cryptography. I'll put it to you like that. Anyways, I do want to show this article, and then I'm going to pass it on to Mick. There is a double standard. So, again, when we do this, we get thrown in jail. When they do this, they get a fine. So this actually happened October 10, 2024. TD Bank hit with record $3 billion fine over drug cartel money laundering. So I didn't hear any TD Bank executives being thrown in jail. Why is there a double standard? Could it be that it has nothing to do with the laws themselves, but it has to do with the fact that they're losing their monopoly and control over the money? Mick, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the fact that they're against Bitcoin, there is no doubt. It's a system outside of their jurisdiction, outside of their direct control. And so anything they can do to stifle it, to make it more difficult for people to enter, it's something they will try to do. But what I think makes these cases all quite interesting is the focus on privacy, the focus and attention against privacy tools, Tornado Cash, Samurai, all these mixers are the one fight that they all have in common. All these different departments, right? The CDC, the aspect about the Department of Justice and so forth. They all see privacy as a big threat. That's where that completely gives them no control over what is going on. They cannot literally understand what is happening, and that is what terrifies them the most. So rather than being a sweeping thing against Bitcoin, I think the fact that they focused particularly on privacy is, I think, mostly what is happening here and what's been happening so far. To some extent, the Samurai, they do mention aspects around conspiracy for money laundering, I think. But I think it's mostly the aspect of privacy that they're trying to really attack. And that is something that Bitcoin doesn't entirely provide. Bitcoin is not entirely inherently private. It's just pseudonymous. So that's what I think, something that Bitcoiners should think about, as something that, is a battle that is somewhat being lost in Bitcoin, if we want to be frank. We haven't, and if someone, this thing actually makes it even harder for anyone that wants to be building Bitcoin on a privacy layer, even more challenged to do so. Interesting stuff. I think I think we have to pay attention to what's happening. I think the war is mostly on privacy, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Absolutely. Before I pass it on to Chris, guys, help us break 300 likes within the show. I forgot to tell you guys earlier on, we're at 209. So at least help us break 250. But I think we can get to 300 now that I'm telling you guys. So if you guys are enjoying the show so far, there's 500 of you guys watching live on YouTube. Smash that like button. There's 3,000 of you guys watching live across all the platforms. So smash the like button, share the video. Really, really helps push this channel forward, this message forward, this signal forward. Chris, hit it.
Yeah, one last thing I wanted to add. So Lola Leitz was the tweet that Nico is showing. She writes for at the Rage Tech. So definitely check her out and support her. She's an independent journalist. She does great work on the ground with anything regarding privacy and use cases of Bitcoin. So just wanted to give her a shout out real quick.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, she's done an incredible job covering this specific subject. So yeah, I completely agree. Chris, let's give her a special shout out. So guys, we will be right back. We will be right back. We're gonna talk to Mick about the Geyser Fund project. Geyser Fund, essentially, guys. The TLDR is that it's crowdsourcing, it's crowdfunding with Bitcoin, crowdfunding for Bitcoiners. So guys, stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're gonna hit the culture. Let's check it out.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, HIVE Digital Technologies. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's been battle tested through every possible market. And as the first with an AI strategy, HIVE continues to redefine the future of sustainable energy. Also, gotta casually drop this in here, HIVE consistently tops the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're changing the game. Learn more by following them at HIVE Digital Tech or check out their website, hivedigitaltech.com.
All right, everybody. Before we start the culture conversation, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, the BitBlockBoom conference. That's happening in Dallas, Texas, April 3rd through the 6th of 2025. This is going to be one of the best Bitcoin conferences of the year. The entire Simply Bitcoin crew will be there. In fact, we will be doing the production. So if you want to meet Rustin, Dante, Opti, myself, for some of your favorite Bitcoiners that are going to be attending the conference, you definitely don't want to miss this Bitcoin celebration. I know that Bitcoin culture is very online. I know that people like to talk online, they like to communicate online, but you cannot replace meet space. So again, there's nothing like networking with your favorite Bitcoiners in the flesh. And again, this is one of the greatest opportunities if you're looking to get a job in the industry. Also, I hope to see you guys. I hope to meet some of you guys, because I just see a number on a screen and that tells me how many people are watching. But, you know, one of my favorite experiences is when, you know, I meet Bitcoiners at conferences and they come up to me and they're like, dude, I watch your show, and I put a face towards some of my audience. It's really, really awesome. So I hope to meet you guys in the flesh at BitBlockBoom 2025. And if you use promo code BBB21, again, BBB21, you get $100 off your ticket. Scan the QR code or check the link in the video description for more information. Anyways, I do want to open it up, and I want to take advantage of the fact that we have the founder and CEO of the Geyser Fund project joining us on the show today. We have Mick. Mick, welcome.
Thanks so much, man. To clarify, co-founder. Me and Stelios of built Geyser already 3 years ago. It's been a while. We launched 2 years ago, but yeah, absolutely. Geyser is essentially a platform to allow Bitcoiners to come together and support Bitcoin initiatives and make Bitcoin happen. It's ultimately about, you know, the fact that hodling is great. We all love it. Hodling is what transforms and rewires our brain to learn about savings. It's absolutely essential, but it's also essential to, you know, if you think about Lola, what she's doing we were just talking about her journalism, right? That's not, you know, she publishes this work open source for free, but her work is invaluable, right? And so actually you can go on Geyser and support Lola, the Rage on Geyser. There's so many projects, there's so many Bitcoiners that are doing incredible work. A lot of it is educational, a lot of it is actually free, like free work, right? Literally working for all of us to spread Bitcoin adoption. And it's essentially a great way to support the Bitcoin ecosystem, push it forward, and enable Bitcoin, like we mentioned before, as a grassroots movement. So I don't want to be doing too much shilling, but it's really this. It's really just helping support the Bitcoin economy, the Bitcoin adoption happening all around the world. It's basically Bitcoiners saying, let's get out of our armchairs and let's actually get our hands dirty, make Bitcoin happen around the world. Whether it's supporting Maya, who's running for president, a Bitcoiner running for president in Suriname, or if it's helping Mi Primer Bitcoin teach Bitcoin to hundreds of thousands of people around the world. There is so much work to be done, and Geyser just helps us all come together to support these initiatives that are pushing Bitcoin adoption forward.
Yeah, Mick, and
Absolutely.
I'll let you shill. I'll help you shill because you said I know you're a very humble guy, but it is a very cool platform. I know that people have launched books. They've kind of used it as Kickstarter. I know Bushido for Bitcoin by Alex Fetsky was launched on Geyser. I know we've got our good buddy Tatum on here between two ASICs. You can support independent journalists such as Lola or Max DeMarco or Pleb Music on Twitter and stuff. So I know there's so many great things. I know BTC trading cards are on here, but it's a platform that I always love and use a lot. I'd have never spun up anything myself, but I try and donate and give back to the community with the various initiatives through here.
Amazing. Thanks, man. Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate that. And I think it's the point is this, right? Is that, and it's the beauty is the beauty of the donations. Right? Donations are an ancient technology, an ancient financial technology, and we're so used to today with crypto tokens and with NFTs and all this stuff happening around. To always consider like, oh, what am I going to get back? The reality is Bitcoin already gives us back so much. Bitcoin is a gift that we are reaping the fruits of. Bitcoin is making us rich by being this incredible technology. And so the idea is that actually by making us better off, we can give a small thing back, obviously voluntarily, to the community to help push Bitcoin adoption forward. And so the nations works beautifully hand in hand with Bitcoin as this NGU technology. As the number go up, donations go up. But also an interesting kind of way of seeing this is actually that NGU is only possible if the number of users in the Bitcoin network goes up. The NGU narrative is very powerful in making us believe that Bitcoin is going to go up forever and ever. But the reality is Bitcoin is only going to go up forever and ever because people believe it will go up forever and ever, which is the number of users joining the network. And a lot of us join because of NGU, and that's fine. But then we learn the deeper reasons why Bitcoin exists, and we learn that it's more than just than the number go up. It's actually a freedom technology, right? And so the more we can spread Bitcoin and the principles of Bitcoin, the more we have a resilient system for Bitcoin to flourish into the long term. And so that's why Geyser as a platform to push those who are doing the work, those who are really being missionaries for Bitcoin and enabling education and running for president and doing books and making Bitcoin fun, right? So yeah, again, I urge everyone to and with Geyser, really the key aspect is let's take action. Let's take action. Bitcoin is not going to win if we just sit back. As much as we'd love for it to be the case, but the more we all take ownership and get out there, spend our time or spend our sats, the more early Bitcoin adoption will come. I actually spoke about Saifuddin Amus about this, and I got him to agree with me that hodling is great, but actually there's a case to spending some of your Bitcoin that you've made by the appreciation of Bitcoin in the first place to essentially make Bitcoin adoption happen sooner. Bitcoin is probably going to succeed anyway, but if we wanted to see a Bitcoin world happen sooner, then spending some of those Bitcoins towards, say, films that are educating hundreds of thousands of people around the world, and Bitcoin education projects, and people running for presidents that are Bitcoiners. Well, that is going to have a big impact. And I do have one good story actually to tell you about that, but maybe I'll stop here for now.
So, Mick, I have a question for you, which is, I think the part that wasn't, it's obvious to us, but perhaps it's not obvious to everybody. Anybody can use this platform to crowdsource. Essentially, if they have an idea for a project, if they have an idea for a company, if they have an idea for a film, right? You can be a rando and you can go on Geyser and you can basically say, send me sats so I can build this dope thing. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point, actually. Yeah, it's quite powerful and quite empowering to realize that through Geyser, anyone can be a Bitcoin creator, can take a role in the Bitcoin revolution. right? Which it is a revolution, a peaceful revolution. So on Geyser, anything peaceful, anything legal, anything only pro Bitcoin can launch a project on Geyser and get sats from the community. Now, Geyser alone has a community of ardent Bitcoiners. There is the Bitcoin community that is also quite, ardent and happy to support really cool projects that support Bitcoin. But it is also important to have your own community, right? So it's always good to bring in your, your plebs, your friends, your family, people that love what you're doing, and help you kickstart it. And then as it gradually grows, as it gets more proof of work, as you put yourself out there and show the impact you're having, then more and more Bitcoiners will be joining the ranks of contributors. And us at Geyser are there to also support you in that journey. We do podcasts. We can learn more about your project. We can spread your news across our followers in our newsletter. And so ultimately, it's about taking action, and the reputation that you can. That you may not be starting with, but it's a reputation that you can grow with us and through your social media following.
Incredible. So I have a question for you, Mick, right? Which is, you were talking about this earlier on the show. You were talking about the Geyser Guardians. So you teamed up with the BTC, is that correct? The BTC trading cards crew?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you go on the left sidebar and you click on Guardians, you should be able to see the full experience. So we teamed up with No Good, who's a designer, and Bitcoin Trading Cards and Hodler's Official. And basically you can become a character, a guardian of Geyser. So it's an interactive experience, kind of gamified. And the point is to get people to to bring in fun, to bring in fun into supporting Geyser and supporting Geyser creators. So we're selling digital perks, physical perks in exchange of sats. And the point is that 21% of all the sales donated are going to the creators on Geyser. They're going to Geyser grants. So if you buy any of these perks, you'll be able to support the Bitcoin ecosystem and support Geyser as well, and receive these limited edition beautiful perks. This here is a Geyser manifesto that highlights what we stand for, what Geyser stands for, what our principles are. And if you have time to read it at some point, this really helps to highlight why Geyser was created in the first place, which is what we've talked about already. Make Bitcoin adoption happen is really why we're here.
Yeah, let's give it a read, right? So, Geyser Manifesto: in a world where nihilism and pessimism about the future prevail, Bitcoin brought us here.
But it brought us hope.
Nico can't read. Hashtag Nico can't read. Okay, let me start that one more time. Back up. In a world where nihilism and pessimism about the future prevail, Bitcoin brought us hope. Not just hope for a world built on sound money, but hope in the power of action to create meaningful change. The world is malleable, and individuals have the power to reshape it. The cypherpunks understood this. They didn't wait for permission. They built the tools of freedom. In 1993, the Cypherpunk Manifesto declared, quote, "Cypherpunks write code." In 2009, Satoshi Nakamoto released Bitcoin's code. Bitcoin was born out of action and a will for change. The vision has always been to lay sound foundations for the digital era, moving away from the predetermined path of totalitarian control and censorship, and towards decentralization, openness, freedom, and self-sovereignty, to bring about unimaginable wealth and human flourishing. For Bitcoin's sound principles to take hold in the world, change must happen at all layers of society. Developers, educators, writers, filmmakers, artists, and entire communities all have a role to play in building the Bitcoin world. No act is too small. Small actions compound into global grassroots movements. Bitcoin is a peaceful revolution, but peaceful does not mean passive. It's time to act. Are you a Bitcoiner? Then you're the protagonist of this story, and the tools are in your hands. What will you do to help bring about Bitcoin adoption? Geyser team. Well, I mean, dude, that's incredibly well written. The Geyser Guardian, the Geyser Guardians, the warrior, the knight, the king, the legend. I'm gonna say that Chris Alamo is the legend. I'm gonna say he's a legend.
You have to show it though. You have to screen share
Am I showing it? Okay, let's show it. Let's pull it up.
because you have to see what the actual what it actually entails. So if you click on that.
Oh, you have to. Who do you think looks more like Chris? This is like a Chris looking guy, the legend.
It's fine. You can hover with it, but if you click on it, you can see what it actually entails. So you've got T-shirts, you've got with these characters, right? And they're all limited edition based on that. So the legend, there's only 21. The king, there's 121. The knights, there's 2,000, and they all come with these jerseys, T-shirts, and Bitcoin trading cards as well. So this is just simply a way of us giving back and recognizing those who are contributing towards Bitcoin and giving them a time-stamped experience of Bitcoin.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, I mean, this is really cool. Very cool project. And I love watching Bitcoiners grow and support fellow Bitcoiners. So guys, go check out geyser.fund. Go check out the URL geyser.fund. It's on the screen right now below Mick's name, and you can go check it out if you're interested in raising money, crowdfunding via Bitcoin. Go check these guys out. They're freaking killing it. Anyways, guys, this was the Friday episode of Simply Bitcoin Live for December 20th, 2024. I'm your host, Nico. It's my co-host today, Chris Alamo, and of course, our special guest, we got Mick from geyser.fund. Love you all. Go outside, touch some grass, eat some steak, be with the family, smash the like button, and we'll see you guys on Monday for a brand new episode of the last week, I think, the last Simply Bitcoin week of 2024 until the 2025 madness begins. Love you all. We'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.